Hey everybody, Lawrence here with 30 Basic Strength coming at you with another one. Now I've been doing live streams where I do live crafting and then ramble on about whatever subject that comes to my mind or is brought up in the chat room or the chat comments. But I did recently complete a series of a Plant Mound Monster on the live streams. Well, I figured I would condense down the 12 plus hours of that build down to a super teeny tiny short video. So you wouldn't have to go and watch all the live streams to see all the steps that it took me to get to making one of these. I'm really happy with how they turned out, and it was super fun to make these on the live stream, and it was a way for me to show everybody, hey, this is how long it actually takes, and this is what it does, and also taught me I can ramble on for an hour or two at a shot and also see what people's reactions are live while I'm crafting. But again, I wanted to condense the 12 plus hours of video down to a manageable chunk so you can watch the whole process from start to finish, at least very small clips of it. So when I make these, and I hope you actually enjoy the process. But before we get to it, I want to give a big shout out to my patrons. Your guys' help every month is so greatly appreciated. So Dungeon Matron, Mia Geeked, Corel, Sykes, Rick Spotton. I can't say thank you to you guys enough. All right, let's get to it. Here I have some 3 3/4 inch bases, and I'm just grabbing some random offcuts out of my offcut bin and just trimming it down so it'll fit onto the base itself without any real much of overhang, because I just don't want it. And now that I've got it trimmed down to a proper size, I can actually start shaping this. And this is pretty much going to be a hot wire tool, and just using a simple blade and just keep shaving off pieces until I get to a point where it's like, yeah, that'll look good enough for this particular piece. And again, it's just a matter of cutting off small chunks until I'm happy with how it looks. And now that I've got all the basic shapes I want, I'm using a plastic grout brush just to get some texture lines in. As you can see, it's just giving like a layer lines in there. Now that I got them all shaped and textured, I'm just using a slab of hot glue here and then slap it down onto the base and then glue it in place. Now, there are flat areas that I want to have a little texture to it, so I got this homemade texture paste that I made, and I'm just brushing it on into areas that I want to have like a dirt, basically around the flat spaces of the base. Now that that's all done, I'm just going to paint on some black Mod Podge just to give the foam some protection, because this is bare foam and a lot of it's going to be showing through. Well, the foam will be seen. Well, not the color, but you know what I mean. Now, I got these cheap Venus flytrap plants from Temu, and these are the ones I want to use for this build. So I need to start trimming apart, and I want to use each individual one, so I'm just cutting apart this plant. And here, of course, I'm just kind of trimming down the stems to a shorter, more manageable size and get rid of some of this leafy pattern along the sides. Just because I know I'm not going to be using it, so I'm just cutting it away now. So I get a lot of plants and stuff from the Dollar Tree, and as we all know, they have these little stems at the bottom. But I was looking one time, and I noticed, those stems look like they'd make really good tentacles. So I would normally cut these off and throw them away, but now I'm like, I can use these. So I'm going to start chopping them off different plants and then bending them into various shapes for tentacles, and I'm going to use them as tentacles because I want these plant mounds to have something to be able to grab a hold of, like adventurers or whatever, and just drag them to the fly trap mouths. So I put a little hole in, press it in, and then hot glue it in place. And I will do this over and over till I'm done. Now, these fly traps I got from TeamU, they look kind of cool, but they're a little plain, so I want to give like veins and stuff on the back just as a little extra texture. Of course, 3 tentacles on each mount just wasn't enough, so I went to my bag of Final Faction tentacles and just started gluing some of those in place and made for a good nice mixture of tentacles for the Plant Mound monsters. Just basically push in an impression, a spot of hot glue, and then just jam it in place. And yes, I know I used a different tentacle there. Now that I got all the tentacles on, I know these are dirt mounds, but I also want it to have like a stony look to it. So I'm basing this with a dark blue-gray. Just because, like I said, I want these mounds to have like a stony texture, stony dirtish appearance. I don't know, but that's what I'm doing. I'm basing these with a dark gray. Now that I've got all the gray on, I'm using a mid-tone brown and just kind of overbrushing it, and the gray is still wet, so it actually winds up doing almost a wet blend effect, which at first I was like, yikes, but I wound up liking how it looked. And now I'm just using a really light brown tan and doing a dry brush over all the dirt areas, just to pick out all the highlights and just accentuate all the texturing I had done. Now the tentacles, I actually want to do a slap chop paint job too. So right now I'm just doing a gray dry brush highlight to them. The same as you would with doing slap chop on a mini. It's pretty quick and simple. Now that all the gray is on, I'm going to do a quick dry brush highlight with some white. Just to once again, this is in prep for doing a slap. I think I'll be using an army painter green for the tentacles. But this will do all the work, a lot of the work of the shadowing and the highlight. And now that all the dry brushing is done, I honestly I think I'm using a Forest Sprite Army Speed Paint for Army Painter and just slapping it on all the tentacles. And it winds up working out okay. So I'm happy with how it looks. And here I'm just adding a base color to all the texture paste that I added around the edges of the base. Just a dark brown. I mean, I know the texture paste is already dark brown, but this is a force of habit for me. So just boom, get it done. And it's real quick and fast, so not that big of a deal. And here I'm just doing a quick overbrush with a my nutmeg brown, which is for me my go-to mid-tone for doing dirt. And then of course I'm using a light mocha for a quick highlight dry brush on all the dirt areas. And now that I've got all the the base mound done with all the dry brushing and all that, I'm just coating everything in a dark brown wash that I make just to dingy it up and accentuate all the cracks and crevices a little bit more than what they were. Now I'm using a pewter gray, and I'm going to be painting all the black tendrils because I don't want black. And trust me, I don't want gray either, but this is just a part of a process which will be obvious down the road. Now, for these mounds, I'm going with a mixture of my highlight color for dirt and my highlight color for my usual highlight color for stone, which is a light gray and a light mocha color, and just mixing it just to get like a kind of a grayish tan color. I don't know. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And then I'm just doing a highlight dry brush on just trying to go from top down, just like how the sunlight hits the dirt, and just make it look cool. Now that that's done, I'm actually going over with a lighter gray and on all the veins and stuff, and just kind of highlighting them a little bit. Now here's a trick to make cheap plastic plants look a lot better. Now I'm using Liquitex ink. This is a burnt sienna through an airbrush. You could probably accomplish this trick with brushes and paints, but I have the airbrush and it just makes it go a lot faster. And I'm just hitting all where the veins are and anywhere on the bottom of the plant I'm trying to get. And then I'm going to do the inside there and just change the plain plastic green color and make them pop. Make them look a lot better, honestly. And it makes them look a lot less like a cheap plastic plant. Now it looks like a moderately cheap plastic plant. Now I have a bunch of other plants that, not the Venus flytrap ones, that I'm going to be doing the same trick to. I mixed a little yellow in to brighten it up somewhat. And these are, like various aquarium plants I've gotten at Temu. Some I think I got from the Dungeon Matron. These are all like cheap plastic plants that come from all over the place. And just hit them up with a different color than the blatantly plastic green that they are can really help. One thing I did do prior to all this airbrushing, I hit everything with a matte sealer so the ink would have something to grab onto. And right now I'm just getting ready to add some flocking to my standard method, which is basically a watered down PVA, 50-50 mix of water and PVA. I'm going to paint the watered down PVA down to everywhere that I want to put some flocking on. And the 3 different flocks I'm going to use is all fine turf flocking from Woodland Scenics. I'm going to start off with an earth color, basically give it like a dark, like brownish green tone to it, just a really dark burnt earth color. And then I'm going to go to a burnt grass color, which is like a mid-tone kind of, a burnt grass color. I mean, really. And then, of course, I'm going to get some yellow grass here and then sprinkle it on for some highlights, and then just to break everything up and make it look more natural, I guess. Natural on a Plant Mound monster. And, of course, even after all I had done to the flytrap things themselves, I still wanted to change them up a little bit. So I'm actually hitting them with little dots of yellow just to break up the solid colors that it was. And off camera, I will hit them up with some dark purple dots. This is just to break it up and give so it doesn't look so one cut. Yeah, I know I airbrushed the brown on, but I needed to break it up. Now, here I actually wanted to grab some yellow ink to, because I was watching some videos of some Venus flytraps, and they all had a slight yellow streak down the very center where the two pieces of the trap actually meet. So I wanted to actually emulate that with these monsters. So but I didn't want it to be too striking. I just wanted it to be very subtle. And then also for all the teeth, I was like, I could go with a bone color or tooth color. But I was like, no, I want to go with a more plant color. So I just used the yellow ink. Now that I've gotten all the Venus flytrap heads done, I want to actually start inserting them. So I'll poke a hole in it, poke a hole in the base, and then dip the wire that is actually attached to the trap itself, and then insert that into some Alien's tacky glue, which is basically thick PVA, and then just jam it in. Some of them require a little trimming at the bottom, but a little test fit just to make sure it's going to go in, and boom, done. And then I'll do this with all of the different mounds. Now, I have all these extra plants that I had prepped as well, because I wanted to give more different looks to it, and just different plants to give it a more of a jungly feel to it. At least that's what I was telling myself in my head. And then the same as the flytrap monster itself, just poke a hole into the foam, dip the end into some PVA, and then insert it into the hole. And that'll actually hold. I've actually picked these up by the plant, so it holds. And some of them require a little bit of extra effort. I'll cut them up and whatnot, but they all go in the exact same manner. Poke a hole, dip the tip in, and done. Now that the plants themselves are pretty well done, I want to start adding some little grass tufts. I always like adding grass tufts to my build just because I like it, so that's what I'm doing. And of course, my go-to is huge miniatures, because I think I just like them. And I've actually met the owner and talked to him at a convention once. So it's just a matter of dipping. These are self-adhesive, but it doesn't matter the brand. I just always feel more comfortable dipping them into some PVA and then attaching them so they will stay. Now, I painted up a bunch of Dollar General skeletons and cut them up into pieces and whatnot because, come on, I gotta have skeletons or something creepy and undead, something dead in my builds. But no, I just thought it would look cool to have some skeletons in the fly traps themselves, look like former old victims. And it's just a matter of test fitting them into it, make sure I have it cut up right and ready to go. Then I'll pull it out, add some super glue gel, and then stick it in place. And then, boom, just let it sit to dry, and I've got a cool looking skeleton. Well, I don't know about cool looking skeleton, but I got skeletons in the different traps. Now, I don't do that to all of them, but there's a good bit of them that have them. And there's a few oddball like skeleton bit pieces and skulls sitting around the bases just for aesthetics, really. Honestly, because I thought it looked cool. So that's why I did it. But again, it's just a matter of doing a quick test fit, putting some super glue gel on, then jam it in place. It's not that hard of a concept. Now, I want to have like gore and like a kind of like plant gore slime. So I'm going with my go-to for any type of water effects. Whoa, shit. Ooh, almost lost that. I'm using a 5-minute epoxy. This particular brand I got from a Dollar Tree. And I put a few drops of some burnt sienna, the 5-minute epoxy, and then an equal amount of some isopropyl alcohol, and then just stir until it actually gets liquid. And then place it anywhere I want it to have like that slimy look, gory look to it. Now, adding the alcohol will actually thin down the 5-minute epoxy to where it's pourable and very usable, or much more friendly to actually pour and place and stuff like that. As you can see, I just poured a bunch. It also will give you much more working time, like maybe 5 to 8 extra minutes. It always varies, but it does give you extra working time, and it does make it much more liquidy. And of course, a paper towel helps to actually... No, not a paper towel. Sorry, I had some parchment paper there to place it, because I did actually let some pour out to run down the sides. It just looked like the plant was drooling. But also, as it starts to harden or starts to stiffen up, you can actually run little like drool slimes and pieces of like gook just going from one tooth to the other, and it works out really well. At least I think so. It wound up looking cool, but once it starts hardening up, you got to be quick to get those little streams on, or otherwise it just gets hard. And as you can see, I'm really happy with how these turned out. It was a fun build to do on live streams and talk to people while I was building these. See what other people were saying during the live streams. But, I'm very happy with how these turned out. I really am. Everybody, if you made it this far, it means you made it watch to the end. And as always, I really do appreciate it, and I can't thank you enough. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If you want to get, I don't release on a regular schedule, so if you want to get notified when I do release a video, hit the bell notification. Also, if you want to come to my Discord and ask me anything you want, I'll try and answer as best as I can. Or show me pictures of stuff you built. I would love to see you guys' builds. I really would. But as I say, this was a fun build for me. I got to do it live on with the live streams. This was just a very condensed version of the original, like 12 plus hours that it took to do this build. Also, a lot of it, just goofing off. But come check out the live streams. I do them on Saturdays every week. And whatever I'm building on that live stream is only going to be built on that live stream, and not like with a few minor exceptions. But all in all, it gets done on the live stream. But you just got to see the condensed version. So, as always, guys, remember, whenever you're building your terrain, painting your minis, or anything like that, just remember, the only person you got to worry about is you, because it's your terrain.